Right. Okay. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense too. If we know who our audience is, it actually helps us to be prepared to answer most of the questions that they may have, right? And be able to actually also at the same time manage influence their thinking in that sense. Right? And I was just thinking about this, and I believe you brought it up before as well in the past, a few conversations that we had. If we are going into a meeting and we realize that we are presenting to all the bosses, the HODs, and the CEO and board of directors even, right? Would it be politically correct, or is it part of political caution if I were to take my presentation a week before and go and see one of those people who are going to be attending the meetings and run it through him and get some pointers, or run it through and get some pointers, and I suppose get support from this person?
Tino, that is not a question at all. It is a mandatory action that needs to happen. More so if you are, again, a manager who's trying to show that you are a capable leader. You know, there's this thing that I call the art of presentation, part of PQ2. There is a before, there is a during, and there is a after. The before part, you have to spend a lot of time. Like I said, if it's going to be a meeting with CEOs and big guns, months before that, you must have built rapport relationship with people. And there's a saying, build relationship before needing to use the relationship. So I always tell people, take time, go sit with the different, you know, HODs or managers or leaders, spend time with them, go for lunch, get to know their personal badge of honor, pride of association. When you go to their cubicles, what's hanging so big that you can start, remember and make that as a conversation starter. You know, all those kind of, you know, you are an expert in people, rapport, relationship, and all those. So all that has to happen, and that has to be a what I call a consistent, repeating, moving activity, you know. And then halfway through a meeting comes, and you need to get something over. So then, a couple of weeks or days before that, you are right. You need to walk past this cubicle of these people without the presentation, just throw a couple of questions, right? And then study their thinking and their opinion. I mean, when you do that, like you said, not only are you going to get potential resistance, so that you're prepared to answer later, you're going to be seeing whether this person is in violent agreement with your idea. If that's the case, then it is the time for you to strike and practice one of those PQ, which is building loyalists. In that case, you know this guy can be a trustworthy well-wisher and supporter of mine. So I need to spend extra time, I need to go extra mile to make his agenda or his project successful, so that I build that emotional bank account, knowing that when I'm presenting in that particular meeting, I have someone, this guy is going to be that, what girl you call that, the thing say, Raj is right, we should have it done. Yeah. So I guess that's how I would say, there's a lot of things we need to do, and all of that will culminate, all the pre-work prior to the meetings, you know, will culminate during that important meeting. And allow me to finish by saying this. Maslow's theory has to be understood. It's one of the PQ principles. You need to know when you attend the meeting, when you're going to be presenting something that's going to impact 1 or 2% in that meeting, and he or she is going to potentially react emotionally or logically or politically, you need to preempt and be able to prepare the right responses. Because the way they are reacting is because they feel threatened, whether their job is at stake, or their department is going to have to size down, or their group going to have to do more work as a result of your proposal, right? So you have to alleviate them from the whole Maslow's theory of this job security all the way to their actualization or their achievement.
Okay. Yeah, Raj, maybe this could be a tough one to answer, and I'm very sure that you probably would have experienced it in your corporate life, and I for sure have experienced it. When you're in a meeting and you're presenting, and one of the HODs is going to turn around and says, throw you you know what they call, throw you a spanner, right? It says, that's a stupid idea. And so now, how do we be politically correct without having to fight or argue with the person in a meeting like this?
I'm surprised you asked this question, because you are the person who's best to answer that. I used to work with these particular people from this particular country I won't mention. They have these emotions in their responses. And one of it goes like this. When I've done this, in a meeting, I've tried to state something, and that guy goes like, Raj, I completely disagree with you. You see that energy, that accent, and that emotion?
Yeah.
Right? So I in the first few occasions, I got stuck because the minute he does that, he threw me off tangent, a curveball, like you said. So I panicked, I started to blabber, I started to even reduce the expectation or the objective of my agenda. So that was a good learning curve. And I realized that there are people who will do that because they are practicing the PQ principle already before you learn the PQ principle. Yes, you need to ask the right question. So if you want to differentiate between a professional PQ practitioner who asks the right question versus a upcoming PQ practitioner who's using a spanner to throw at you, there's a difference to that, right? So I guess if I'm in that position where a person just says that's a completely, useless or lousy idea, I guess, like you said, don't disagree with them, right? Agree with them and said, yes, wow, it's amazing that you see it from a perspective that none of us thought through. I would like to talk to you. I'd like to really understand more from you. Let's meet over lunch right after this. At this moment, let me get through with this agenda. We may not meet the objective of today's meeting because Mr. X has just felt completely different, but let's address it. Something like that, to all these things. And let me also elaborate to say that if you have prepared for your meeting well enough, which means you have run through the potential audiences, their potential reaction based on the emotional or political or rational, and if there's a big boss who's coming in and you have studied his dynamics, you may very well be able to state some of your responses in such a way that the big gun may just say, I think Raj is right, let's let him finish. Cool, you've done your PQ part.
Yeah, the reason I throw you this question is because I get a lot of it all the time, when I on my program, and like what you said, the way that you approach it, and it's, telling the person that, well, thank you for coming from a different perspective. I tend to use questions to answer them, and I will say, thank you for your comment. Would you mind sharing why do you say it doesn't work? So I use a question to throw it back. So would that be political quotient as well? If I use a question to answer a question, kind of a thing?
Oh, certainly. Anything that you can pick up to actually either stop him and put him in a corner, or give him the necessary importance, make him happy, get him an ice cream so that he keeps quiet, sucking on it while you can continue agenda. That would be like a question to a question, or a strong statement to a question, or a data to just shut him off, or an emotional story to let everybody cry in a response to his question, are all PQ skills.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Raj. And Raj, you mentioned there are 10 PQ power principles, right? Can you quickly give us a rundown of all these 10?
Sure. Before that, it's interesting. People have asked me about, Raj, do you teach PQ principle class? I said I try to avoid class as much as possible because these things are what I said, it should be so personalized in nature. It has to be curated by cases. So that's why I prefer coaching than classes and training. But I had to write down the list of it. So there's 10 PQ power principles, guys. PQ principle number 1 is take charge and take control. I just articulated earlier. It has to be about when you are a new and a young manager, the first thing you need to do is to tell yourself, I cannot be waiting for my boss to tell me what to do. I need to start defining my strategy, my vision, my direction. So strategy, organization, understanding the organization structure, the formal and the informal. And thirdly, most importantly, who are your competitors? Who are the fellow HODs or group leaders or other managers who is going to be fighting for the same budget, resources, and promotion. You need to study them. I'll go one step further to say that you need to even do a SWOT analysis of all your individual competitors. Okay, that's PQ number 1. Take charge, take control. Number 2 is acting your part.